Now, sadly, this list won't be able to turn back time and change the fact that Rey was actually a Palpatine all along. However, it will be able to shed some light on some easily missed cameos, a few brilliant nods to the past that won't leave you cringing, and many more Rise of Skywalker features and Easter eggs you possibly never noticed. So I am Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars, and here are 20 things you somehow missed in Star Wars Episode 9 The Rise of Skywalker. Number 20, that mysterious message could actually be heard on Fortnite. Within the opening few seconds of The Rise of Skywalker, fans were hilariously informed that the dead speak, as Episode 9's opening crawl explained how Emperor Palpatine had recently sent out a mysterious broadcast threatening revenge. However, the words of Zombie Palpatine uttered in this message were never actually heard, in the film that is. If you weren't immersed in the world of Fortnite at the time of the movie's release, you probably missed the fact that Palpatine's sinister broadcast actually debuted during a December 14th event in the game, dedicated to the incoming Star Wars feature. Sometimes it pays to play video games, you know. Number 19, it's a song! Star Wars lost a mighty hero during the events of The Last Jedi, with Admiral Jeel Akbar shockingly being blasted out of the Radius. However, his legacy actually lived on in The Rise of Skywalker. That Mon Calamari resistance fighter seen on the hero's Ajan Kloss base throughout Episode 9, that's none other than Jeel's own flesh and blood Aftab Akbar, a character first seen in the Allegiance comic books. He was doing his daddy proud. Number 18, Ralph McQuarrie's concept art inspired thrones and locations. The late great conceptual designer Ralph McQuarrie was responsible for creating some of the most fascinating concept art in movie history, with many of those ideas heavily influencing the galaxy far, far away fans know and adore today. And his exceptional work managed to find its way into the final Skywalker saga entry too. Palpatine's intimidating Sith throne on Exegol was evidently inspired by McQuarrie's unused concept art for the Emperor's throne in Return of the Jedi, as confirmed by Lucasfilm creative art manager Phil Szostak on X. Also, as noted by Lucasfilm story group member Pablo Hidalgo, the mirror spires on the planet Evexia Poe Dameron Lightspeed skips to early on in Episode 9 were influenced by some of the work seen in the illustrated Star Wars Universe book that contained a ton of McQuarrie's fantastic art. Number 17, the origins of location names. The Rise of Skywalker introduced Star Wars fans to the likes of the snowy Kijimi and another moon of Endor known as Kethbir. When it comes to that former location, you likely didn't spot that J.J. Abrams actually seemingly opted for that specific name as a nod to a real-world item. Abrams is quite the fan of a Japanese company known as Black Corporation, and they also produce a synthesizer that goes by the name of, you guessed it, Kijimi. The company even posted a photo of the director holding said item on their Instagram a few months before the film came out. Elsewhere, the location where Janna and the rest of her stormtrooper pals mutinied, Ansett Island, is actually an anagram of Staten Island, the birthplace of Episode 9 screenwriter Chris Terrio. Coincidence? I think not. Number 16, Lando Calrissian and Wedge Antilles record-setting returns after 36 years away. The Rise of Skywalker was the first time in over 3 decades both Billy D. Williams and Dennis Lawson appeared on screen as Lando Calrissian and Wedge Antilles respectively, though Lawson did actually lend his voice to the character for GameCube's Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader game back in 2001. But with that not technically counting as a live-action / on-screen performance from the OG trilogy thespian, both Lawson and Williams' welcome comebacks to the galaxy far, far away ultimately set the record for the longest time between on-screen Star Wars appearances, with both of the original trilogy actors last appearing in The Return of the Jedi a whopping 36 years before Episode 9 landed in theaters. Number 15, Rey was right about BB-8 doing the same thing she did. Not long after showing she possessed the ability to heal other living beings by transferring force energy from herself to a wounded Vexis, Rey tells her little astromech pal BB-8 that he would have no doubt done the same in that position. Far from being a throwaway compliment from the powerful Force user though, this actually acts as a subtle piece of foreshadowing. When the gang eventually find themselves on Ochi's ship on Pisana, the rolling hero bumps into another small droid. And after spotting that this diminutive bot was very much deactivated, BB-8 swiftly decided to pump some power into little Dio, voiced by J.J. Abrams in the flick, and bring him back to life. Proving that this Resistance legend certainly would offer a bit of his own energy to heal/fix someone when given the chance to. Rey knew her droids, dammit. Number 14, Ben Solo's facial scar disappears after he's healed. The Force Awakens ended with the fallen Ben Solo clearly getting slashed across the bridge of his nose by an unexpectedly powerful Rey on Starkiller Base. He got his ass whooped. This scar then bizarrely moves a few inches across his mug in The Last Jedi, due to Rian Johnson feeling the wound looked a bit goofy where it originally was. But what you may not have caught during your first few watches of The Rise of Skywalker was the fact said facial scar disappears entirely after one rather important moment. When Rey repeats her aforementioned healing trick on the son of Leia Organa and Han Solo after stabbing him on Kef Bir, keep an eye on Ren's face. As Kylo Ren is gradually pulled back towards the light by his parents and the other half of the Dyad of the Force, the mark Rey put there in the first place gradually fades away during the recovery process, and is absent for the rest of the film. Number 13, a few bad robots turn up in Babu Frick's workshop. Just before the protocol pal C-3PO has his memory wiped in Babu Frick's workshop, in order to successfully translate the Sith language pointing the team in the direction of the all-important Wayfinder, a B-1 battle droid can be found sitting over the golden figure's shoulder. And that wasn't the only bad robot in Frick's place of work either. According to the film's creature effects supervisor Neil Scanlon, an actual little red droid version of the mascot for Abrams' Bad Robot production company was also hanging out somewhere in the area. You just never know who you're gonna bump into in Frick's Droid Wonderland. Number 12, A New Hope Starfield makes an appearance. Rey had just been well and truly drained by her despicable grandfather. That did not sound as weird in my head. However, just as Darth Sidious was in the middle of ripping apart the Resistance fleet with his ridiculously powerful Force lightning storm, his own flesh and blood began to ask the Jedi of the past to give her a hand in taking out the revived Emperor. And it was in this moment when a starfield could be seen as Rey heard the many different helpful voices. But this wasn't just any old collection of stars, folks. It was eventually confirmed by visual effects supervisor Patrick Tubuck that this is actually the same starfield fans first saw all the way back in 1977, when the opening crawl of the first Star Wars had reached its end. How cool is that? Number 11, some famous Jedi help Rey take down Palpatine. And while on the subject of Rey calling on the Jedi of the past to help her whoop Palpatine's wrinkly ass, the collection of famous Jedi faces J.J. Abrams managed to assemble for this awesome voiceover ensemble is more impressive than you initially may have realized. Along with the awesome return of the likes of Mark Hamill and Hayden Christensen as Luke and Anakin Skywalker respectively, deep breath, Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, Sir Alec Guinness and Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ashley Eckstein as Ahsoka Tano, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan Jarrus, Olivia d'Abo as Luminara Unduli, Jennifer Hale as Ayla Secura, Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu, Angelique Perrine as Adi Gallia, and last but certainly not least, Frank Oz as Yoda all show up when Daisy Ridley's Rey needs them the most. This was pretty much Star Wars version of a muddy Chris Evans bringing together Earth's mightiest heroes to take down a nutsack-chinned Mad Titan. Number 10, Rey's new lightsaber was built from her quarterstaff. After using the lightsabers of various Skywalkers during the Skywalker saga, Rey finally switched on her own personal Jedi weapon just before The Rise of Skywalker concluded. And there's a solid chance you were too blinded by the fact Rey decided to go for a fresh yellow blade for her weapon of choice, complete with a yellow kyber crystal, to spot exactly what that lightsaber was made of. Well, as confirmed by visual effects production supervisor Roger Guert, the hilt of the laser sword was actually crafted from bits of the quarterstaff she'd been using since episode 7. So she'll always carry a piece of her Jakku past with her whenever she's slicing her way out of trouble in the years post Rise of Skywalker. Number 9, C-3PO's last line in the saga was the same as his first. In another cute nod to the film that started it all in the flick that, well, ended it, C-3PO's final line in the Skywalker saga was actually the same as the first one he ever uttered in the galaxy far, far away. That's right, back when 3PO and R2-D2 were first introduced on a rebel ship in the opening scene of A New Hope, the Golden Protocol droid's first words were, "Did you hear that?" And that's exactly the same thing Anthony Daniels' droid legend asked his longtime astromech pal on Argent Kloss after the Battle of Exegol, when Rey arrives back at the Resistance base in Luke Skywalker's X-Wing. Number 8, C-3PO's 42 years line is a reference to the release of 1977's first Star Wars. When Poe Dameron, Finn, Chewbacca, Rey, BB-8, and 3PO arrive on Pasaana to continue Luke Skywalker's search for Exegol, the iconic protocol droid was quick to let the gang know that they had landed in the middle of the Aki Aki Festival of the Ancestors. What are the chances? He'd also revealed to the lucky group of Resistance heroes that this vibrant festival only happened once every 42 years. And you'll never guess how long it had been since the release of A New Hope at the time The Rise of Skywalker was originally in theaters. Yep, 42 years, baby! Number 7, a star-studded Resistance fleet. Just when it looked like our heroes were done for as they attempted to stop the Emperor's final order on Exegol, the mother of all reinforcements arrived to save the day. And with so many ships, a staggering 14,000 strong, soaring in to assist Poe Dameron and what remained of the Resistance, it would have been pretty much impossible to spot each and every epic spaceship cameo present in this triumphant arrival during a first watch. But when you do take a second to pause the heroic entrance of the Citizens fleet, everything from Harrison Dula's Ghost Ship to Princess Leia's Tantive 4 flagship, to the same sort of N1 starfighter used by the likes of Anakin Skywalker and Din Djarin over the years, are all there flying into action. A Hammerhead Corvette first seen in the animated Rebels series, a number of Mon Calamari star cruisers just like the one Admiral Raddus flew in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, and many more familiar ships were all led into battle by the legendary Millennium Falcon too, with the shot of this fleet finally showing up absolutely overflowing with Starship nostalgia. Number 6, another Holdo maneuver. After the Resistance's victory on Exegol, thank you very much Citizens Fleet, fans are taken back to the forest moon of Endor in a sequence showing how folks across the galaxy were rising up against the First Order. Here, the brave Ewoks are seen staring at an obliterated Star Destroyer hovering over their home. And if you take a closer look at that recently ripped in two ship from the First Order fleet, it soon becomes clear that some fearless soul opted to take a leaf out of Vice Admiral Amelin Holdo's book in Episode 9. One eagle-eyed fan on X noticed how the white beams of light bursting out of the back of the First Order destroyer looked exactly like the ones that were left behind by the Holdo maneuver in The Last Jedi, with the Vice Admiral wrecking some enemy ships by ramming them as she jumped to hyperspace. 1 in a million move my ass, Finn. Number 5, tons of sinking beans. As Rey, Finn, Poe, and the rest of the gang find themselves slowly being pulled into a sinking field on Pasaana, you likely weren't thinking about exactly what that black sand was actually made of. Weirdly enough though, that wasn't really sand at all. The cast were very much sinking into a collection of different materials on set, including black beans. A massive 30 tons of those little black beans were used whilst filming this impressive practical effect in the end, due to the fact they were easier to push through than actual sand. So there you go. Number 4, the rise of the cameos. Joining the likes of the many returning cameo Jedi voices, one of the Rise of Skywalker's screenwriters, Chris Terrio, voiced the aforementioned Aftab Akbar. Warwick Davis made his Star Wars comeback as Wicket W. Warwick on the forest moon of Endor alongside his son Harrison Davis as Pommet. And Ed Sheeran showed up as a stormtrooper and the Resistance's Engi Golber in Episode 9. Elsewhere, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who also helped create the Lido Hey song heard on Pasaana, shows up in the background during the Resistance's celebrations on Argent Kloss. Mark Hamill added another Star Wars cameo to his growing list by voicing the Avician who delivers a message to our heroes early on. Clerks director Kevin Smith could be seen as a Kijimi local too. And then there was the legendary John Williams, who briefly showed up on that same planet as Oma Trez, with Abrams and his team actually surrounding the iconic composer with various props that celebrated many of the films he'd majestically scored over the years. Lovely touch. Number 3, Rey's dirty face and visor were actually CGI. While there was certainly a decent amount of outstanding practical effects visible in J.J. Abrams' second sequel trilogy flick, one particular moment involving the woman who murdered her evil grandfather on Exegol, leaving that planet actually boasted far more CGI than you likely noticed. As revealed in ILM's fascinating behind-the-scenes look at some of the magnificent digital effects used in Episode 9, Daisy Ridley surprisingly didn't have to spend a bit of time in the makeup chair having dirt applied to her face and costume, or look through a visor whilst filming her battleground exit. All of these elements were actually entirely digital, and impressively layered on top of her performance after she'd shot the cockpit moment. Number 2, Maz Kanata was an animatronic instead of CGI. From sneaky Star Wars CGI to an unexpected lack of it, Maz Kanata's return in The Rise of Skywalker was actually a whole lot more practical than her first few appearances in Episodes 7 and 8. J.J. Abrams had actually originally wanted to go down the puppet route for Lupita Nyong'o's Pirate Queen during the making of The Force Awakens, but eventually settled on creating the character via CGI/motion capture. However, when it came time to bring the humanoid back as Leia's advisor in Episode 9, creature and special makeup effects creative supervisor Neil Scanlon would eventually tell Cinema Blend that the director wanted the various characters sharing scenes with the late Carrie Fisher's Leia, brought to screen via digital effects and unused footage from The Force Awakens, to be quote-unquote intimately involved. So the team created a highly advanced animatronic puppet for the moment Maz could be seen interacting with the likes of Leia and Chewbacca in the flick, with digital effects only being used to perfect a few details and erase riggings. Number 1, the callbacks to Rey's beginnings. Back when Star Wars fans first met Daisy Ridley's eventual Jedi warrior Rey on Jakku in 2015, as the nobody rummaged around the Empire's destroyed ship for parts. This involved a lot of jumping and swinging from high places, before the masked hero hopped on a piece of metal and slid down a sand dune. And as a nod to those humble beginnings, The Rise of Skywalker actually contains a few moments that act as callbacks to Rey's scavenging introduction. Take the moment Rey is searching for the Sith Wayfinder on the second Death Star. Her handy parkour skills are once again on show as she hops around another battered Empire relic. Also, as she arrives on the desert planet of Tatooine to bury her master's lightsabers, the Jakku native simply couldn't resist going for one more little sand sled ride on her way down into the Lars homestead. Rey may have ultimately become one of the most powerful Force users in the galaxy by the end of The Rise of Skywalker, but she evidently never forgot where she came from. And that's our list of any other things that people somehow missed in Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Well, let us know all about them in the comments section right down below, and don't forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. I have been Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. Cheers for hopping back into the Skywalker saga with us today. May the Force be with you, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye bye!